Coming back here on Sports Talk Chicago with Joey Christopoulos filling in for John Zalgul. Please follow me on socials at Joey Sports Guy. Make sure you follow us at Sports Talk Shy, Instagram, Twitter, doesn't matter. If you're watching here on YouTube, thank you so much. Like, comment, subscribe below. And to our previous segment here, I want you to comment too as well. Who do you think by season's end is going to be Caleb's favorite receiver? Do you think it will be Rome Odunze? Do you think it will be Keenan Allen, DJ Moore? Or if you want, you can go other. Moving on though. Number 6, burning questions for Chicago Bears training camp. Number 6 for me is Matt Eberflus. And it's simple. Will he have his team ready to play? It's a simple one. I mean, we're going to see it through training camp about his personality style, about his preparation style. There have been some rumblings. I talked to a couple people that said that he is trying to run a little bit of a different camp than he has in years past. Thank God. Because honestly, nothing was more deflating and embarrassing, and nothing got me more mad at Matt Eberflus. And look, first half of last year, I was leading the carriage on get Matt Eberflus out of town. I wanted him fired. I wanted him gone. We ended up losing, 14 games in a row. And it wasn't so much the losses. It was just so much the manner of how just dead and flat the Chicago Bears looked coming out of training camp. And I find that to be just completely unacceptable. It wasn't just the Green Bay game. I mean, it was the Tampa Bay game. They played terrible. They kind of rallied in the fourth quarter, fell short. And then in the third game, obviously got trucked by Kansas City Chiefs. I just can't understand how you can just let a team look so unprepared like that to start a season. And maybe we'll look back and we'll say it was maybe some of the more player elements. Maybe it was some of the hodgepodge of the offensive line that was going on at the time. As I mentioned in the first segment, maybe it was all Justin Fields. I guess we'll never know, or maybe we will know in some years' time. But Matt Eberflus, man, that's my big question for you. Are you going to have this team ready to play? Competitive. I know we all want to talk about how great the team was in the second half. It wasn't that great. They just played above 500 football. The defense turned into a top 5 unit in the second half, mostly based on turnovers. And they were able to put some wins together. That's great. And that's the kind of progress that we want to see, especially in the Matt Eberflus era. But I want to see it from the jump. And we play a Tennessee Titans team, week 1, that I'm not saying we should beat by 30 points. But if the optimism and the talent on paper and the momentum that this franchise is building, if it all starts coming together, there is no reason why the Tennessee Titans, I mean, they should lose by 10 to 15 points week 1. And this is what I want to see. Are you going to have your team ready, Matt Eberflus? Which leads me over to burning question number 7. How much will Caleb and some of the starters play in the preseason? There's been a real full circle with this whole thing, where about 20 years ago, or, when I'm in college and I'm starting to really dive in and dig into NFL and really, really become a true fan, the third preseason game was by far the best, right? Because they would play the starters, not just through the first half, but sometimes through the third quarter. And you really got a chance to look at what is this offense capable of? What do they look like? And can I actually get excited about the season? And then the trend came in where the guys don't even play at all. I mean, Matt Nagy famously, he didn't play Mitch at all during the 2019 season. What a huge mistake that was. And I think with new coaches, I think if I was a new head coach, I would think, what are my blind spots and how can I guardrail? How can I put some bumper lanes on this bowling experience of mine to protect myself, to just get my team into the season? I think that the easiest one is to sit some of your guys in the preseason. But I think Matt Eberflus has learned an important lesson in these last 2 years where I think you got to play some of these guys a little bit. They got to get a feel for it. And it isn't that old school, like they got to get popped and they got to hit somebody and then the season starts. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's more the speed I think they have to get used to the reps and the speed and try and get some sort of rhythm and continuity there. Now, a lot of people have been out there saying, what is it going to be then for Caleb Williams? And last year, C.J. Stroud played anywhere between 45 to 55 snaps as its several other prominent quarterbacks. I think that's a fair number for Caleb. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to say right now, I do not see Caleb playing a ton in this Hall of Fame game. Not enough padded practices. I guess you can maybe have him play 2 series if the offensive line is intact, but what's the point? You want to build him up incrementally. But I do think maybe that third preseason game, I think you should see several drives from Caleb Williams. You can cater the offense around it too, where you don't have to have him do 17-step drops and throw the ball 70 yards down the field. You can try and protect him a little bit, but get out there, what Eberflus calls execute the operation smoothly. See the speed of some of these defensive ends. Try and diagnose a pre-snap blitz here and there. Get the ball out. Maybe try and execute a screen pass, which usually involves a sense of deception and continuity within your offensive line and everyone to fake it to make it look real. I mean, I think Caleb needs some significant snaps and some significant play here in the training camp. And look, you can't protect these guys from injuries. I mean, these things, they're going to happen. But I think this is going to be paramount to Caleb getting off to a fast start. And, you know, my number 6 and my number 7 burning questions here, they're one and the same. To get this team ready to play, I do think they have to get accustomed to the speed of the NFL again, which I don't think you can replicate in a joint practice or even in padded practice. I think you got to do that in the preseason, so hopefully that's something that they do. It's going to be a wait and see, and that's why it's one of my big questions. Number 8 coming up. This is just a really fun one. And it gives me a lot of optimism, not just for the Chicago Bears this season, but the future of the franchise, where Cole Kmet and Jalen Johnson, are they the new leaders of the Chicago Bears? I'm sure Caleb Williams hopefully will one day take over that mantle, but, and look, I think Montez Sweat is a quiet leader on the defensive side. But Cole Kmet and Jalen Johnson, these are 2 guys, keep in mind, Bears fans, that just got fresh money. Cole Kmet before last year, Jalen Johnson this offseason. Fresh money, guaranteed dollars. The old sports cliche of sometimes you get paid, you get lazy, you get soft, you try and protect yourself from further injury. You know, you're working for yourself. You're working for yourself, INC Incorporated. But Cole Kmet and Jalen Johnson seem more involved, more vocal, and seem ready to roll in a way that I find completely refreshing for the Chicago Bears on both sides of the ball. I think we're going to see it a lot in Hard Knocks. I think we're going to see a more vocal Cole Kmet on offense, whether it is working with Caleb, whether it is working on the offensive line, because he is he's a good blocking tight end. But I think this is the type of stuff that we need to see. And it is funny that both of these guys are not Ryan Poles guys, which is also an interesting wrinkle to this. They're one of the few players from the Ryan Pace era that not only stuck around, but Ryan Poles, knighted on the shoulder and deemed them worthy of keeping and gave them fresh dollars. I love what Jalen Johnson is saying right now. He's not saying that this defense is special. He's not saying that this defense is elite. He's saying that this defense, it's time for them to go out and produce, as is the entire team. The Chicago Bears, in years past, have been a little guilty of doing a little too much talking and not enough producing on the field. They've had some big names on both sides of the ball, and while they have provided some highlights, at other times they provided us some inconsistency. And if Jalen Johnson goes out and is a top 5 corner in the NFC or even in the NFL and is leading the charge and it becomes a leader on the team after he got fresh money, I just think that's super cool. Good for you, Jalen Johnson. Those are the types of players that we want. And honestly, if you want to start looking at what are the little breadcrumbs of a team that maybe can win a Super Bowl one day, it's the type of offseason that Jalen Johnson just had and the type of stuff that he's saying in training camp right now that gives you that kind of encouragement. Cole Kmet, same thing. I mean, the dude has turned into a legit solid tight end. I'm not saying that he's a top tight end. you can maybe make a case by season's end this year that maybe he's a top 5, top 6 in the NFC. But still, you know what you're going to get from Cole Kmet. Solid blocking tight end, great down the seam, helpful in the red zone, could probably maybe do a little bit more on the offense. But to hear him being vocal with his new money, committing to the future of this franchise and not just sitting on your laurels and saying, hey, dude, I got paid, or hey, I'm upset because they signed Gerald Everett, I find it incredibly refreshing, and I just think it's something that's really optimistic. And are these guys maybe some of the new leaders heading into this new era for the Chicago Bears? Number 9, burning questions here. This is one that I think is going to play itself out over time. Will Khalil Herbert make the team? Can Roschon Johnson carry the load if Swift is hurt? Because honestly, just from my vantage point, I got an opportunity. I cover the Detroit Lions for a fantasy football website for multiple seasons. So I was on the daily with DeAndre Swift. In the beginning part of his career, let's be very fair, the dude was a walking questionable. He wasn't always on the practice field. Was he able to suit up on Sundays? Yes. Did he miss some time? Yes, he did. Did they also, in Hard Knocks, there was a very famous clip of him being called soft in the running backs room? Yes. I think he's done a good job of putting all that to bed. I think he is a talented back. I think he's the unquestioned number 1 running back in the room right now. Was I super jazzed they signed him to the deal? No, not really. But look, I'm going to root for the dude nonetheless. The big thing for me is I don't even know why this is a question. Is Khalil Herbert on the bubble because we have to keep Velus Jones around? Is Khalil Herbert on the bubble because Travis Homer is going to be an important piece of the puzzle? All I'll say is that when Khalil Herbert has the ball in his hands, he can definitely make it around the edge. He's got the speed. I actually really like what he did between the tackles. For a smaller running back, I thought he ran pretty tough at times last year. And I just think he has more home run hitting ability than Roschon Johnson at this point. Is Roschon Johnson more of a well-rounded running back? Yes, he is. He's a better blocker, even at this stage in his career, which is only his 2nd year in the NFL. Probably a little bit better of a pass catcher. And he is good at punishing running backs. But here's what I will say. I like Roschon Johnson as the number 2 running back right now. If DeAndre Swift has to miss time, Roschon Johnson as your lead back, it scares me. It scares me a little bit. I think it changes the dynamic enough of the Bears offense where maybe it gets a little too pass heavy and maybe we're putting a little bit too much pressure on Caleb Williams at that time. I mean, unless it comes down to a production issue, which I can live with, I think the Chicago Bears at this time should carry 3 running backs into week 1. If Swift goes down, I think Khalil Herbert gets that first crack. I think Roschon Johnson should be cemented as the number 2 running back, a guy that's change of pace, a guy that you can, hopefully if you're up 7 to 10 points in the late 3rd quarter, late 4th quarter, you get your offensive line rolling, Roschon Johnson can start running over some people and really suck the will from the opposition, and you can lock it down and close it up. But look, I still think Khalil Herbert brings something to an offense. I think he has an explosive quality from him in the backfield that Roschon Johnson lacks. And in my personal opinion, I don't understand why you can't keep those 3 running backs, at least for a little bit. Head into the season, if something happens injury-wise, roster-wise, you can make a decision from there. But I think just to start the year without Khalil Herbert on the team, I don't know if I'm buying it right now. I mean, I get it, special teams is important, but if you're telling me who's going to be touching the ball more in a game, if DeAndre Swift goes down, who's touching the football more in a game? Will it be Khalil Herbert or will it be Travis Homer or Velus Jones? Even if you split carries with Roschon, you're still looking at 8 to 11 touches for Khalil Herbert in a game if DeAndre Swift doesn't play. That to me is more valuable at this time than probably keeping a guy like Velus Jones around if it's that kind of roster crunch that's going to go down. And my final one, number 10. Burning questions coming at you for the Chicago Bears in training camp. Breakout candidate in the secondary. Tyreek Stevenson. Just really quick, he's not my pick. I'm just naming them all. Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, I think are probably the 3 to pick from. Jalen Johnson just got paid. Kevin Byard's a veteran. Tyreek Stevenson, man, I give the dude a lot of credit. He was a whipping boy for opposing passers last year. I mean, he was a rookie. They went after him a lot, and he took his lumps and his licks. And you know what? He was resilient and came back and played great. We all saw the numbers towards the end of the year. He was getting interceptions. He was on top of it. He was great. Really enjoyed him. Jaquan Brisker, love watching him play. Love his physical mentality. Do I love the fact that he probably has to take a few plays off every single game because he gets a little woozy, gets a little stung out there? Does that worry me? Yes. There's always a TV timeout with Jaquan Brisker on the field. Him walking off gingerly, and thankfully he comes back into the game. And then finally, Kyler Gordon, who was having a great training camp last year, broke his hand. What are you going to do? Had him miss the first 6 weeks and then came back. Made some plays at some times, got burned at some other times, but man, the athleticism's all over the place. So who's the breakout candidate in the secondary? I think Tyreek Stevenson is the easy and safe call. I am actually going to go with Kyler Gordon on this one. I think there is a possibility where, man, you can get really diverse with how you use him. And if you got Jaquan Brisker now, having people, they love to bring him down in the box. If you could have opposing defenses guessing where he's going to be, I think you could slip Kyler Gordon. I think you could put him on to different players. I think you could try and bring him on a disguise blitz. If you are, faking Brisker into the box, I think there's a lot of different things that you can do. For all the old school people out there, you got to understand 3 cornerbacks in the NFL on the field at the same time. It probably is 55, 60%. Some people for more. Part of it, you only run with 2 linebackers now these days. There's a lot of nickel play, and Kyler Gordon has an opportunity to become one of the best cornerbacks in the NFC, at least in the NFC North by season's end. And I just think it comes down to health and him putting it all together. And the cool part about it, when we talk about breakout candidates with Kyler Gordon, also is the fact that the dude could do a backflip. His nickname is Spider-Man. And if you want to talk about a guy getting an interception, doing a backflip, and then you see it in slow motion as it goes to a commercial timeout, I mean, that gets some eyeballs on there. It gets some national notoriety. It's a part of the breakout candidate formula, if you will. And I just think that's something that's I think Kyler Gordon could be up for a huge season. It may not show up necessarily in the stat sheet, but Bears fans that watch the game snap to snap on a week-to-week basis, I'm hoping that they're going to be pleasantly surprised with how active, how athletic, and how impactful Kyler Gordon is on the field this year for the Chicago Bears. That was my 10 burning questions here on the show. For those of you who are listening on the radio right now with our great radio affiliates, thank you so much for tuning in. Hop on over to the YouTube page if you want to hear me talk a little bit about some baseball MLB trade deadline as kind of a bonus little segment that I'm going to set out there for all of you guys. But really, thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank my producer, John Meadows, at the controls, doing an amazing job week in and week out. Also want to thank John Zalcool as he continues his recovery. Thank you for letting me continue to sub in. For those of you that have been watching and trying to support, I know I get it. I know you're very loyal to John. I respect it. I understand it. That was part of the reason why I stepped in the first place, is because I was inspired by the community that John has built. So for those of you that keep coming back on a week-to-week basis and are trying to enjoy the show or enjoy me, I really do appreciate it, and I know John appreciates it too as well. Shout out to our great radio affiliates throughout the great state of Illinois: 98.3 The Life, WKAN, W55 The Ticket, ACTV, JED-TV, WJOB, Cities 92.9 Talk FM, and 101.1 Peoria Sports Radio. You can follow me at Joey Sports Guy. You can follow us at Sports Talk Shy, wherever you follow your socials. If you're listening to this audio only, thank you so much. If you're looking to listen to it audio only, Spotify, Google, Apple, doesn't matter. Google keyword Sports Talk Chicago. You're going to find us. And thank you so much for checking us out on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe below. That's going to do it for me. Again, if you're listening to this on the radio, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you want to get a little MLB trade deadline talk, it will be in a different segment on our YouTube page, so make sure you check that out. I am Joey Christopoulos. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sports Talk Chicago. When we come back, more Chicago Bears talk. Will the Cubs be in it? Will they be trading? How many players will the White Sox trade off? Who knows? Who knows? We'll see. But guys, we're getting into August. This is getting real. It's getting very exciting. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be well, be safe. Please be good to each other. Enjoy the week. Sports Talk Chicago. We are out.